everybody.
Hello.
Welcome to the Macabre Podcast universe. This is the podcast where we analyze franchises, and we exist to prove people wrong when they say that sequels are never better than the originals. And we are currently going through the Hunger Games series, and we're on the second one. This is the Hunger Games Catching Fire. Which, yeah. What do we want to say about it right off the bat before we jump in?
Nothing. Go.
I guess neither of us have an experience with this movie.
Well, I realized about the last third of the movie, I'm pretty sure I've seen it.
Mm-hmm.
It was very familiar to me.
Right around the clock reveal,
I feel like I might have watched this on TV one time.
Okay.
With my dad or something.
Okay, Scott.
Yep, that's his name.
Okay, well then I'll just go into production notes here.
Go through it.
So, the movie is directed by Francis Lawrence, who is going to go on to do the rest of these movies. He started out directing a ton of pop videos. Just like, when you
From
go
how
through
far back?
I like 90s and I think maybe even 80s.
Oh.
But when you are scrolling, it's like...
Oh.
I mean, it's... So he directed the rest of these movies. Red Sparrow was his most recent movie, which was the Jennifer Lawrence movie that bombed. Water for Elephants, and also I Am Legend. Kind of a strange...
Very weird. Water for Elephants looks very boring to me.
It looked very boring to me as well.
Even though it's got Robert in it.
But it's the kind of movie where I feel like around certain people, I feel like there's someone we know that maybe it's like Renee or something, has been like, you haven't seen Water for Elephants? And I'm like, what? People saw that movie?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. I don't even really know anything about it other than my opinions.
Yeah. So it's produced by Nina Jacobson and John Killick. Again, same as last time. Screenplay is by Simon Beaufoy, who did the recent Steve Carell and Emma Stone movie Battle of the Sexes. He did Everest, 127 Hours, Slumdog Millionaire. So he's like
True stories.
Well, he collaborates with that director Danny Boyle quite a bit.
Oh, okay.
And then the screenplay is also by Michael DeBrune. But his name on IMDb is Michael Arndt, Ardent. Mm-hmm. And we've actually talked about him because he is one of the writers on Toy Story 3.
Oh.
And he also he wrote on The Force Awakens, Inside Out, Oblivion, and a Jordan classic, Little Miss Sunshine. And
his fingers in a lot of pies.
yeah. We also have another James Newton Howard on the score, and cinematography by Joe Willems, who did the rest of these movies, Red Sparrow, the pilot of the show that somehow has come up several times in this podcast, Awake, the movie where the guy with like
Lucius Malfoy's in it.
Yeah. He is cinematographer for Limitless, 30 Days of Night, Hard
Did you see
Candy.
Limitless?
Yeah.
Was it good?
I found it to be very, very bad. It was pretty stupid.
Felt like a Twilight Zone episode.
Yeah, and that's the whole thing. It's like, why am I watching this and it should be a half hour, maybe an hour, and it's a 2-hour movie, you know? It's not good. And he also did Hard Candy, and he has done a lot of cinematography on the show on American Gods, the Neil Gaiman show.
Okay. That still no one's told me if it's worth watching or not.
Yeah, the trailers have looked very bad to that show.
But Neil Gaiman's attached to it.
Yeah.
So it's piqued my interest. Not that everything he does is great, but you have those other two guys, David Tennant and...
You're thinking of Good Omens.
Oh.
American Gods is the one with the dad from Hot Rod.
Yeah.
And I think it's about like gods living among men or something like that. But it looks...
Is Good Omens Neil Gaiman?
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
So he's got 2 shows right now?
Yeah.
Oh.
Maybe more.
I wonder if they'll do a Sandman. That would be terrifying.
Well, maybe. We've never actually read it. So
I've read part of it.
Oh, you have?
Yes.
Okay.
In college, I think we were all supposed to bring like excerpts of a very influential work to us to class, and she basically like copied
Your professor?
No, a student copied like a chapter because it's a graphic novel, so like a chapter of it. Wow, it was terrifying.
Really?
Yeah, it was pretty scary.
I would love to read it. I almost bought like the first collection, but I wasn't super crazy about the art.
That's like kept me from reading it.
Yeah.
Also, the scary stuff I remember being like oh, that feels very wrong to me. Therefore, I don't really want to read it.
Okay.
That was years ago though, so I don't really remember the specifics of what was happening, but it was scary.
Yeah.
It was before I saw Hereditary.
So the movie's produced by Lionsgate and Color Force again. It's distributed by Lionsgate. The movie comes out November 22nd, 2013, so just a little over a year past the first movie. The budget of this movie is $130 million. It makes $424,668,047 domestically. Worldwide, it makes $865,011,746. And this movie is connected to the previous series we covered because the trailer to this movie was released connected to Breaking Dawn Part 2.
What does that mean?
Like when Breaking Dawn Part 2 came out, the first trailer for this movie was only playing in front of that movie. So,
yeah. Okay.
Which is smart, good marketing. And then my last note, because I have almost nothing on this movie, is that the arena scenes were shot on IMAX cameras.
Oh, wow.
To give
it
a bigger scope. So
cool.
That's what I have for Hunger Games
that does
Catching
look good
Fire.
Okay, so we missed a pretty big person in the last movie, but that's okay. Donald Sutherland.
Oh, yeah, we actually didn't talk about
Papa of Kiefer Sutherland, a.k.a. Jack Bauer people.
Yeah.
Donald Sutherland has been around the block. He is in Pride and Prejudice. I'm not going to go to his full filmography.
No, just hit the.
And I know this is going to be more recent stuff, but I have a feeling maybe our audience might know him from more recent stuff.
Yeah.
He's in Ad Astra. He is in American Hangman. Wow, all of these, I don't know what these are. Wow. Oh, he's in a movie with his son called Forsaken. And they're both on the cover. Look at that. They're in a Western together.
Oh, cool. I've always wanted them to be in a movie together, but
very averagely rated.
Yeah.
He's great. He's a gem in everything he's in. I'm just going to leave it at that because it's Donald Sutherland.
Yeah.
Okay.
I feel like that happens almost every time we have a really iconic actor. It's kind of too.
It's hard,
and especially when you like. I'm not super well versed in Donald Sutherland. I know every time I see him, I like him, but I'm not like, oh yeah, back in the 70s, he played this character and that made him famous. You know,
yes.
We're learning that stuff about the people we're growing up with. You know, so it's. I don't know that about him.
Okay, so then we're next going to go to Jeffrey Wright, who plays BT, who is the guy with the electricity guy.
Yeah,
with like the coil. He is in Shaft, Broken Flowers.
Which Shaft?
The Samuel Jackson Shaft.
What year did it come out?
Oh, 2000.
2000. Okay.
The Manchurian Candidate. He is in Westworld, which he seemed to be pretty good in that. I watched the last episode of season 1. Pretty big twist. And he's in Game Night.
Yeah.
He's also in BoJack, Cuddly Whiskers. He plays the hamster.
Who's the hamster?
So remember, I don't know, he's like a gerbil or something.
Yeah, I'm picturing him, but what does he do in the show?
We're in his house at some point, and there's a ton of awards everywhere. And him and BoJack, I think, are supposed to be working on something, and I can't remember. I don't remember what season, but I know who it is.
Yeah, I'm vaguely remembering that. Yeah, I can see the hamster.
Oh, he's also in Boardwalk Empire,
and he is also in he's oh my gosh, I forget the character name, but he's in Casino Royale as one of the helpers of. Cool. James Bond.
Then we have Amanda Plummer, who is in Pulp Fiction.
Oh, okay. Is she in anything else?
She's in The Fisher King. She's in Hercules. Like animated Hercules.
Wow. So
she's in so much stuff.
For those who don't know, she's the girl in Pulp Fiction that is Bruce Willis's girlfriend.
No.
What?
Tim Roth. You said Bruce Willis is.
Oh,
no,
I was.
no.
Yeah, no, it's not her. It's Tim
they
Roth.
look nothing.
Yeah, they don't. They don't.
Like she's the honey bunny. I mean, she calls him Honey Bunny.
Yeah.
She robs the diner with Tim Roth. Tim Roth? Is that his name?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's her.
Wow.
What a crazy cameo appearance. And then Sam Claflin, who.
Well, it's not really a cameo because she's a character in the.
No, I know, but it's just like, okay, fine, Easter egg, whatever. It's a gem. It's fun. He plays Finnick. He is in Me Before You, Snow White and the Huntsman.
Is this the guy with the very strange smile and the super dimples?
He's like a knockoff Rami Malek to me. He's also in Peaky Blinders.
Can you walk me through that?
They kind of have a similar look in terms
Really?
of teeth. He's also in Peaky Blinders, Adrift. A lot of chick flicks, I would say. And then he's in Huntsman, Winter's War.
Wow, he made the cut on both Huntsman's
He
movies.
did. But yeah, a lot of chick flicks. Is he gonna move? No, that's not Robert Pattinson. He wishes. Okay. And then let's see. Jenna Malone, who plays she's one of the contestants. She's the one that strips in front of them in the elevator.
Yeah. It's the best way to describe her.
She's in Donnie Darko. She's also in Neon Demon. She is in The Public, Nocturnal Animals. I don't remember that.
Yeah, she's like her assistant, I think.
Oh, okay.
In the movie.
She's in Batman v Superman.
Really?
Janet Clyburn. She's got a full name.
Forgive me for not remembering who Janet Clyburn is.
She's in Inherent Vice. Also don't remember that.
I don't remember that either.
I've always liked this actress.
Yeah. She's got a fun energy to her.
She does. And I think it probably helps a lot that I mean she's in Donnie Darko for me.
Yeah.
But she always has reminded me of Kristen Stewart. I think they look a little bit similar and they're around the same age. Okay. Just making sure I'm getting these people before I get to the last one. I think we're about good. We got the important ones. But then the most important one is Philip Seymour Hoffman, who plays the Game Master, or Plutarch Heavensby.
Plutarch Heavensby?
I hardly know him. Okay, so people, Philip Seymour Hoffman has been around the block. But
we're a little more well-versed in his career.
So he plays the titular master in The Master.
Yeah.
I guess maybe that's up for debate depending on how you view the movie.
Probably his best performance.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of my favorite ones.
I mean, you got to at least put it into consideration.
Yes. And he also plays Capote.
Oh, that's a great performance too.
Which I know it's a biopic, but I believe a lot of it is about him talking to those prisoners in cold blood.
I think it's just that.
It's
not like his life.
Interesting biopic, huh? Where they focus on a part of his life and not the whole thing.
Yeah.
And
so you haven't seen it?
I've seen some of it.
Okay.
But it's just one of those. It's kind of like Love and Mercy, where it's like we don't need the whole picture to understand this person and the significance that they contributed.
Yeah.
To history.
Well, because when you watch a biopic and they decide to choose their whole life, unless it's something really long and they really are specific about certain things, it just feels like you read a Wikipedia article with actors.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So when you zoom in, you can kind of apply that to the person's life and learn a little more about them, I think.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people think
agree.
that.
Okay, so was The Most Wanted Man his last movie?
I think that was his last shot movie.
Okay.
I let me look it up while you keep on talking about him.
But okay, let me scroll back to more back stuff. But he is a Paul Thomas Anderson guy. He is isn't he in Hard 8? He's in Hard 8, right there. And then he's also in Boogie Nights. He's in Twister. That's crazy. He's in The Big Lebowski. He's in Patch Adams, Magnolia. Oh my gosh, he's so good in Magnolia.
Really unbelievable. You said Boogie Nights as well?
Yes.
Okay.
Almost Famous, The Talented Mr. Ripley. I don't remember that. Punch Drunk Love. Yeah, he's in Punch Drunk Love. He's in Red Dragon. He's the dude that gets is burning in a wheelchair going down the street. That's him. He's also in Cold Mountain. Mission Impossible 3, where he plays a wonderful bad guy.
Oh my gosh, that is such an underrated Mission Impossible movie that people don't talk about so much. It's, you know what? It's possible it's J.J. Abrams' best movie. It's at least up for debate.
Okay, I'd have to go back through his career and assess that.
Maybe I love Force Awakens a lot.
I really like Super 8.
And Super 8 is really great. It's definitely better than the Star Trek movies.
Yeah.
It's cool though because he does the Hitchcock thing where the whole movie Ethan Hunt is just trying to get the rabbit's foot, which is just a MacGuffin. The whole movie, and it's never explained, and it's like it's just kind of exploring it's just openly exploring the concept as him being a film nerd, I'm sure, of a MacGuffin. And then Philip Seymour Hoffman is just unbelievable.
He's kind of scary in that movie.
He's scary.
Yeah, he's nuts. He's in Doubt, which I think a lot of people make fun of that movie today, but I remember liking that movie.
Never seen it.
I saw that so long ago though, so I don't know what my opinion would be now, but I remember liking that movie.
You want me to tell you his last movie now?
Yeah.
So he died in the production of Mockingjay Part 2.
Oh, but that's right.
His last full movie, as far as I can tell, is A Most Wanted Man.
Okay. I do remember that now. He also plays Max in Mary and Max. Didn't know that.
Oh, yeah. A beautiful claymation movie that's very emotional.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's in The Ides of March, Moneyball. I mean, come on, people. Man, it's been like 5 years since he died.
Wow.
That's crazy.
Yeah, probably Force Awakens is the best J.J. Abrams movie, but I'd consider Mission Impossible 3 as a candidate. It's too much fun.
Okay.
So that's it. We
Yeah.
covered Hoffman, so we should jump into the movie.
Let's just do it.
Okay. So movie again starts out and she's like hunting stuff. And what's cool about the beginning is she's having these she has post-traumatic stress from the first movie. Mm-hmm. And right away,
yeah, the first movie, not the battle.
Yeah, the Hunger Games.
I'm just joking.
But yeah, it's like right away I'm thinking, whoa, okay, they're actually like diving into some stuff. Because in the last movie, they dove into stuff. Uh-huh. And you wonder where it is going to go from there. You kind of can guess like the politics and what I've heard about the series. But when you throw in like post-traumatic stress, it's like, this could be really interesting.
Yes.
And the way they show it is cool. Like she's about to shoot like a bird or something.
A turkey, I think.
Turkey. And then she just shoots and it hits like a player from the other game.
It hits the person she killed in the last games. Like the boy that she killed, who killed Rue.
Yeah, okay.
And it also similarly starts off, she's with Gale, which is kind of like, okay, what's this guy's deal? I hardly remember him from the first movie. But that's a but. You know, so then that happens and they go back into town and they like share a kiss. So it's like, okay, they're together.
Yeah.
Despite everything that happened in the last thing where her and PETA publicly were together, obviously. Although we knew that it was for show, but it's like, okay, she loves Gale. Mm-hmm. And so I have heard that Gale doesn't have much to do for a lot of the series, which is kind of like, oh, so is it just a love triangle thing? Is that what this is all for? But then I realized, so when they like share their kiss and they're talking, I forget exactly what they talk about, but it's like, he's basically saying all the things that women have said in other tropes, where it's like pretty much like, I'll be here when you get back from the war, even though, you know, she's not going to war, but like she's going to do her like public stuff. And she's like, I'll be back in a couple of weeks and everything will be normal. We'll be able to resume our normal lives and it'll be fine again. Which is like, so that totally was like, I think if some people have problems with him like that, that's not necessarily wrong. But in a way, it's like, it's kind of refreshing to hear a guy say those things that I've heard women say.
And it's kind of a turn on the trope of like, I mean, tropes may be the wrong word, but you know, it is always
it's
like
a stereotype.
Like there are a lot of movies where there are women characters that don't have anything to do except for what men have them do. or like they're motivated by men, which is not
yeah.
inherently wrong, but like a lot of times it's like, okay,
Well,
but there's like 8 other guys in this movie, and 8 of those guys are not motivated by women. So how come all, the 2 women in this movie are only motivated by men? And so it's cool that in this movie, it's like, well, it's just this man who's motivated by a woman and his family.
Yeah.
And she has like other things that she has to do. I think that's a really refreshing take. And I mean, speaking of him, because we had heard the same thing, that like he's kind of pointless in the series. You could cut him out. And I kind of think that, like, especially in this movie, he kind of like holds the whole thing together in a lot of ways, because it's just that, like, he is home to her.
He represents home. Like, her mom and her sister represent it as well, but it's the 3 of them together that represent District 12 to her.
Yeah. And it's I don't know, personally, I wouldn't change his role in the movie, because I think it would get annoying if he was showing up all the time and being like, oh, you still kissing that PETA guy, No,
it's like he doesn't like it, but he understands.
Yeah.
Like they did this thing publicly, and they can't just take it back or else they'll die. Like it's safe to assume that they would probably be killed for like cutting, like, to make the ratings go bad.
Well, Snow even says that when he meets with Katniss in like the scene after,
like, convince me that you love each other.
Yeah. And he mentions that whole thing about the berries and how she messed up the system. And then she says it must be a very fragile system to be shattered by berries.
Yeah.
Which is a cool line.
Yeah.
I don't know if it was exactly that line, but
yeah, that was great. So her and PETA are like going on a tour where they're going to each district to kind of like give a speech of like condolences to the 2 people you've lost in the games. But they were supposed to, they're supposed to provide some kind of encouraging, rousing speech that they didn't even write.
Which, that's kind of a weird concept in and of itself.
I think it's the Capitol, like, because basically they're representing the Capitol at that point because they participated and won something that the Capitol puts on. So they're like spokespeople in a way. So they're going to these districts and like doing these things that are like, we recognize your loss.
Yeah.
But remember that they died for this sacred, weird thing that we've put together.
Right.
But we recognize it in our condolences. That's kind of how it feels. Yeah. The whole point of it. And I think it's also to distract people. And then also and I think it was not the first district they went to, but the second one, you see people in the crowd who were just so pissed about it. And it's like, I'm assuming people are pissed every year when people come back to tell them they're sorry that people died that shouldn't have died. And that made me think of like, sure, they're providing a sense of hope, like a very lazy sense of hope to them. But the people are so mad about it that it's as if they're seeing these people who have been from a lower district basically like accept the Capitol and are working with it, and their anger keeps them from doing something about it because they see these people of authority like submitting to the Capitol. Yeah. But it's so the first district they go to, and they go off book. PETA goes off book, and then Katniss goes off book, and basically says like, this is terrible and I'm sorry. Like, he saved my life and he didn't have to. I tried saving her life and there was nothing I could do to save her life, and I feel terrible every day for it. And it causes a riot. Yeah. And it's like,
and they do the 3-finger salute.
Yeah. And I think it's them like genuinely expressing how they feel is what gave the people of District 11 the courage to even do the symbol. Yeah. Well, and the way she treated Rue specifically. Yeah. And I think it gave them the kind of hope that Snow was trying to kill. Avoid, yeah. Yeah. I thought that this whole sequence was so interesting.
Yeah, because we're doing this whole thing where they're going through the districts, and you're seeing that there's like unrest in the districts.
But when they get higher, remember they like got to one of the higher ones, and that little girl's like, I hope one day when I'm old enough, I'm going to volunteer like you did. Yeah. And it's like, oh, what? Yeah. Which makes sense because it's even the propaganda is even stronger to the upper class in a way. Yeah. Because it's the people who actually have some influence because they probably are wealthier. Right. But they're distracted by the entertainment to know the truth. Yeah. It's crazy.
And then, so in this whole section, I think there's all the like political stuff that's really cool, and it's actually pretty surprising for like a teen novel and book to like focus this much on the politics.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe I'm just not well versed in young adult, but it feels like Harry Potter was not like political like this. And so that was cool.
It was more inherent good and bad.
Yeah, and then Twilight's kind of its own thing, and it feels like
Twilight's the type of propaganda that's trying to distract us from political things.
And Hunger Games feels like that's like kind of a mark in like young adult, both movies and books, where it's like kind of a before and after moment. Because then I mean, I don't know when the Maze Runner books were written, but those seem more political.
I have no idea what they're about, other than it seems like they're supposed to participate in a game to the death as well.
Yeah.
That's the only thing I know.
Of course, come to find out, I'm sure when I get done with this episode, I'll look up Maze Runner, and the books were probably published in like 1972 or something like that.
Look it up. Let's just see.
Okay, cool. But as you're doing that, one thing that I really noticed too, though, so you have all the political stuff and the commentary on just society and classes, but there's also this really interesting commentary just on celebrity life and nature. Because I thought of what you said. You've always said when, like, what was it last year when Brad Pitt and
Angelina Jolie.
Well, no, Jennifer Aniston like got back together after being together in like the early 2000s or something like that. And you just said, a lot of times think that this stuff isn't real. Like they just make up the weddings to like help with their Oscars and like distract and stuff like that.
Oh, it's just like we will, like, even people who don't watch Brad Pitt movies know Brad Pitt.
Yeah.
Or because they see him in a magazine so often, they will see his movies.
Yeah. And so this movie made me think of that, especially when they're like, okay, here's what we can do. You can get married to PETA, because what's more interesting than a wedding? And you know that they're not, like, PETA definitely loves Katniss, but she doesn't love him. And it just reminded me of that idea of like just doing these moves so that you stay popular and that people are with you and not actually living the life how you should be living it.
And one thing I appreciate about PETA, by the way, Maze Runner came out in 2009.
The books?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So
Hunger Games beat them.
Yeah. So PETA's character, when did the books come out?
I think, well, I'll check.
So with PETA's character, I like him. He actually does have feelings for her. He seems very, I don't know, like in a way patient, if that makes sense. I know you're like.
Did you say 2009?
Yeah.
So Hunger Games 1 came out in 2008.
Wow.
So I mean, that could be just a case of having similar ideas at the same time.
True.
Go ahead.
I'm sure they're very different.
Yeah.
They're just both dystopian, so that kind of puts a thing in your head.
Yeah.
Of what that is.
Yeah.
Okay, but PETA's character to me feels in a way like patient, or even like, well, I don't have a voice, so I'm just not going to say anything because nothing I can do matters, because they all they care about. It's just an interesting. I don't usually see that from the guy.
Yeah.
It's another version of like, that's not very common for me to see.
Yeah.
And it's interesting. Maybe, I don't know if patience is the word I was looking for, but okay, so they go to, basically this tour ends at, let's just say, the Capitol. I think it's the Capitol, at this huge party to celebrate them.
Yeah.
And it's just so like garish. Everyone's wearing the craziest costumes, the craziest hair and makeup. Even they're wearing really crazy stuff, and they're like presented with food, more food. And they're like, I can't even eat anymore. And it's like, oh, just drink this and you'll be sick and you can eat more. Like, it's,
which is such a crazy
normal
idea of like and of course I was like, oh, that's cool. And I was like talking through it, and then PETA explains it right after. Yeah. but the fact that they have a drink that makes them puke so that they can eat more, so that they can just taste everything. Whereas like the districts can't even, they're astounded by a loaf of bread.
Yeah.
You know, the class structure of that is just, you know, devastating.
And it's interesting too that these people, so PETA and Katniss are from District 12, and they're at this crazy party of unlike anything they've ever seen. And these people are not treating them like they're from District 12.
No.
Because all they see them as are winners and celebrities, and that's why they basically are accepting them.
Yeah.
But it is like, no, you need to recognize where I'm from and how that actually is offensive to me.
Yeah.
What you just said about throwing up after eating. I would never even dream. Like, that's probably things that would be going through their head.
Yeah.
But it's in this scene that we are introduced to Philip Seymour Hoffman's character.
Well, we've actually met him before, but this is when he meets Katniss. Because he's talking about how we need to make her look like she's one of us so that the people will hate her.
True.
Which, really cool idea.
Yeah.
His performance is so cool.
Oh, it's like, I mean,
it's very muted, but there's this intensity behind it.
It's super methodical, like a gamer. Because he's not, it's him. Everything he sees is a game, not just the game. Because he's talking to Snow about how politically and on the news we can make this work. So he was like, have a riot, or no, like flogging. What dress is she wearing? Execution. What's her hair gonna look like for the wedding?
Yeah,
another execution. It's just like staggering all this type of news and propaganda to make people fear the Capitol further, but also distract them with this fun and glamorous thing that's happening. And it's like, oh, that is so scary because feels a little real.
Yeah. And you were right. This is the first time we see him. I was just looking at my notes because after this, he says all the stuff we just talked about.
So they meet, and Katniss being like putting on a face this whole time doesn't even try with him.
Yeah.
Which I think is cool. Because it's like, oh, you're the person who tries to kill people.
Well, and he says a comment that I remember thinking when it happened, I was like, oh, he's like an inside man. He's like part of the resistance. Like,
yeah.
And then by the end of the movie, I was like, no, he's not.
What did he say?
I can't remember exactly, but I think he said, something like, it's something to the effect, her saying, oh, this is all just a game to you. And he's like, yeah, it's a game to both of us and we need to win. Or something like that, where you're like
that, yeah.
Oh, wait, what? And so then at the end of the movie, when you find out he's a part of he's like the leader of the resistance, you're like, oh, okay, yeah.
Right.
But he played it so well throughout the rest of the movie that I kind of thought, oh, he must have just been messing with Katniss.
Me too. And it's crazy that I've seen the third movie and I forgot that he flips sides, or he's working undercover.
Yeah.
Okay, so then it ends with them going back home, correct?
Yeah.
And the peacekeepers, which are the stormtroopers.
Yeah.
Are so they get back, and Katniss is with Gale and is like, we need to run away.
Yeah.
They will kill us. Mm-hmm. So why don't we just run away? And he's like, we can't run away. Like, we have to stay here. It's like our responsibility. Think of my family, think of your family. So they don't leave. And the peacekeepers show up and they pretty much just start hurting people for no reason. And to the point where like Gale is being whipped in front of everyone. And I think that's interesting that like Katniss stops it and the guy doesn't even know who she is.
Yeah.
Because it's not his job.
Yeah.
In a way, it's like he's here to he's not supposed to like look at people's faces.
Yeah.
And so then we see like, I like the Woody Harrelson's, I like what his character does of like convincing him, like, do you even understand who this is? And then do you even understand who I am?
Yeah.
And then like, does PETA show up at one point too?
Yeah.
And it's like, do you even understand who this person is? That was super interesting. And then they're trying to treat Gale, or, he's fine, but.
Yeah, but he's pretty messed up. And it was a real nice touch. On the guy who was flogging him, there was blood speckled where it would be if he was like whipping to his back and stuff, which I just was like, that's such a nice touch.
Yeah.
So the movie's chugging along, and then after that, they're like, okay, we need to get her killed. She's way too much of a threat. So it's been 75 years since the first Hunger Games, and they have these things called quarter quells every 25 years. And I think it's especially in this one, this was unusual. They were like, we're making a new rule. Winners can be drawn, or it's only drawn from the winners.
Only the victors
district
are eligible.
Yeah, which was unique because they reacted in such a way that I did not think that this had ever happened before.
Yeah.
At the other quarter quells.
I understand.
Yeah.
Yeah. One thing about Katniss's character that I think is pretty well written is so many times she's trying to figure out ways to get out of basically responsibility. And when something happens to her that might be personal, like Gail getting whipped, she doesn't even question for a second to save that person.
Yeah.
And even when they're like in the first movie during the games, like, of course, like she's supposed to be killing people, you know, or that's the logic behind it. But it's like, there are so many times she would like fight for other people or like do something that like she would only harm someone if it was in defense. But it wasn't even something that entered her mind. It was like she just did that.
Yeah.
So her even like trying to get Gail to run away with her is like, I understand that character flaw, and I think that's interesting. And even later on in the movie with PETA, she's trying to convince him to run away with her. And he's like, we can't do that.
Yeah.
Even though they tried to kind of come up with a different plan. But she's like trying to figure out ways out of this, but it's as if responsibility keeps being thrust upon her. And it's like she doesn't even question for a second to accept it.
Yeah.
When it's put in front of her. I just think that is like pretty well written for a character.
Totally. Yeah.
So you can keep going about the other thing.
Where was I?
Well, they're doing the new games.
Yeah, so they do another drawing, and it's shot pretty intensely. I like how the everything is, and you know, it's just interesting that Elizabeth Banks is still trying to be like, oh, fun.
But she's lost it.
Yeah, and then she goes to draw out of the fishbowl, and the only name in it is Katniss because she's the only girl that's ever won there. And so she pulls it, and she says her name, and then just one tear goes down Jennifer Lawrence's face because she's dreading going there. She's still having post-traumatic
stress. Yeah, when they announced it, she like freaked out. It was so real.
Yeah.
Dang, it was good. And then her, before that, pleading with Haymitch to like volunteer if you can.
Yeah.
Make sure that PETA can't get in. And then I like that PETA volunteers for Haymitch. You know, obviously there's nothing you could do to stop that.
Although I did want to see Woody Harrelson in the Hunger Games, but no, story-wise, yeah. But yeah, then they pull Haymitch's name, and then PETA volunteers as tribute, like right away, and it's kind of cool because it juxtaposes to the previous time, the last Hunger Games, where it was so surprising that someone would volunteer as tribute. Yeah, it's like he does it, and it's so nonchalant, and he's like, "That's just what it is." Okay. Yeah. And it's not a big celebration or like, wow, you saved his life. It's a little more like, oh boy.
Yeah, terrible. Just terrible.
And then everyone just silently raises their 3 fingers. And you know, it feels intense there. And then we get to where we meet the big bad tough guy who has the guy you talked about earlier.
Okay, well, let's just say that...
Oh, did I miss something?
Well, no, not really, but the next little bit of the movie is everything that was done in the first movie.
Yeah.
Because why would it be different?
Yeah.
And I didn't get bored with it at all.
I think after the drawing, the movie kind of loses me a little bit.
I would say it's maybe the slowest point.
I'm not sure why. But there's just something about like the training to the end of the movie that I'm just like not totally on board with, and I couldn't quite place my finger on it.
Do you think it was just you were kind of bored because you've already seen it?
I think that could be possible, but I think there's enough new things that it is pretty interesting.
Yeah.
And you get to see Philip Seymour Hoffman. I think part of it might have been just like it might have been the new cast of characters.
Yeah, not super compelling to you.
I mean, they were kind of cool. I don't know. I just couldn't place my finger. And I'm not... It wasn't bad. But yeah, I guess there is an element of... Like, the movie feels like it's really building to this like, political thing. And then the, like, quarter quell comes. And then it becomes the first movie. So I think that's probably what it is.
Well, let me try and convince you otherwise.
Okay.
So we are introduced to all of the new contestants who are all people who have won before. So they pose an even greater threat than the last movie because they have won. They're victors. And not only that, like a lot of them have like are older, they're wiser, they are more capable to even win this thing. So a couple of things that I thought was really interesting. One being, I forget the number of districts of these things, but the one district where the 2 winners were basically drug addicts because that was their way of coping with winning. Like coping with killing people was self-medicating. Super interesting there.
Yeah.
And then another one with what's that guy's name? Finnick. The Finnick guy with the old lady. The old lady volunteering, very interesting. It's like, what's going on there?
Yeah.
And then we have the Pulp Fiction girl and the other guy.
Yeah.
Who were like, well, honestly, it's like, oh, they're famous enough that I know they'll be important.
Yeah,
We'll get their story eventually. Yeah. So they have a pretty quick like introduction of most of the people. They didn't do all of them, but then they started talking about like you need to like now work on creating allies with some of these people in order to survive, because you guys are the least experienced. Therefore, and you guys are the most popular too. Therefore, you have the biggest targets on your back. That's interesting strategy.
Yeah.
For me. And then they have the training happening. That's when we get to meet all these characters. And that's when Katniss first meets Pulp Fiction girl and the other guy. And she helps them. They gain a little bit of trust, but they definitely seem off their rocker.
Yeah.
Like, what's going on with those people? So it's kind of like, how can they help her later on? Because it's interesting because they're not physically fit.
No.
Compared, like, some people are, like, super physically fit.
Yeah.
And even, like, basically Katniss picks the visually least, like, the weakest people she could pick. And the one person she doesn't want is Finnick, because he was really weird to her. Really competitive to her earlier on.
Kind of, he gets in the, like, annoying teenage zone. Yes. And until later in the movie.
Which they're just really making you not trust him, so that later on you do question him, but then end up trusting him, just like Katniss. Because the books are written from her perspective, so you're seeing things through her lens. And
I will say, they did trick me, because I was like, oh, this guy sucks. And then when he helps her in the games, I thought, okay, they're just doing this, and then later he's going to betray her. Big whoop-de-doo. And then he didn't, and he's like part of the resistance. And I'm like, oh, okay. Okay, you got me on that one. That's cool.
I totally flipped on that guy.
Yeah.
All that stuff, super interesting to me. Even that her chosen allies are the weakest people. When Haymitch and Peeta are like, you've got to be kidding. You didn't talk to anyone else, or like try to get anyone else. And then I also thought it was interesting when it was their time to like show their special talent. And it's like, yeah, we've seen this before. She put, what does it say? Oh, she writes Wes Bentley's name on a mannequin and hangs it.
Yeah.
That's her special talent. So it's like, okay, she's getting a little bit of a voice because she's getting
that
really
was
pissed.
A good,
And I also thought it was super interesting throughout this time that every contestant's super pissed.
Yeah.
As they should be, because they have already won this game. They have killed people to survive and win this game, and they're called back to it.
Yeah.
Basically, when it's promised that that'll never happen to you. Mm-hmm. And that is really shown later on when they're doing all the interviews with Stanley Tucci, which another 5-star to Stanley Tucci for this role. Most people are pretty much like playing to the camera and all that stuff. But then the one girl,
the Donnie Darko girl.
The Donnie Darko girl. She's like the firecracker of everything.
Oh, I forgot to tell you a note about the elevator scene.
Yeah.
So apparently they did that at a hotel. Like they filmed it at a hotel, and they didn't
black out anything.
Well, it sounds like there was like one time where they were running through the scene, and like a hotel manager was like, "Oh, whoops, okay." That was like her Kimmel story, which is always like you never quite know how true those are.
Yeah,
those little anecdotes that they tell.
Yeah.
But anyway, which that was a kind of a weird scene. I think at first I was like, "Oh, brother,
absolutely cut it. That makes no sense."
Yeah, but I mean, I think seeing how rebellious she is and stuff throughout the movie and everything, I'm like, okay,
say F you like so many times during her interview. That's enough for me. I don't need to see her like strip in front of them. Yeah, that's weird. But they're so going.
It is funny though seeing Woody Harrelson just being like, "Well, nice," and then Peeta's like not. He's kind of like
very uncomfortable.
And then Katniss is just so upset but not looking at her.
Yeah. Okay, so then so she does her big FU thing for her interview, which I was surprised about. And then from there on,
well, they get away with putting the F word in it because they beep it because it's being broadcast to.
Yes, it works.
The district, so it like works within the world.
Yeah, and so then Katniss is next, and she's wearing her wedding dress because perfect publicity. Yeah, she was supposed to get married, and now she can't. And then she twirls, and it becomes a Mockingjay, which is a huge political statement.
Yeah. Well, it's becoming one.
Becoming a huge political statement to everyone watching. And you're like, oh, cool, that guy's dying. The designer.
Yeah. Lenny Kravitz.
Yeah. So then that was a pretty big deal. And then it's just like
I
at this point.
I like the evolution throughout the series so far of the Mockingjay idea. I think it's pretty cool and it feels natural.
Yeah.
Anyway, that I just wanted to
I guess I'll just get to the point of like it's just, I guess I'm not losing my train of thought. But it's just interesting because like the last movie, they were all playing to the camera. They were all like playing to the audience because they want sponsors. And at this point, this time under these circumstances, this is like, I don't give an F about pleasing anybody at this point. Like a lot of people become that, even to the point of like PETA, so surprised by that, where he's like, yeah, we got married in secret. Wow, that's crazy. Yeah, and she's pregnant. Wow.
Oh, yeah.
So that's implicating that this pregnant woman's going to die.
Yeah.
Which is huge. Like that would piss so many people off.
Yeah.
So brilliant.
And then they all hold hands. So it's this kind of act of solidarity.
Yeah.
And Philip Seymour Hoffman keeps being like, don't worry. President Snow, like, I got this handled.
And Snow's getting a little impatient of like, she needs to die. Yeah. And it's like, I've got it all figured out.
Yeah.
Okay. So then the games happen. Lenny Kravitz gets killed in front of her right before, which was pretty intense. And then the setting is very interesting. That it's in this tropical and they start in the water.
So
you can speed through as much as you want. I'm just setting the stage.
No. This is good. But I just want to say, what all the stuff you're saying, I'm like, I am on board. That does make. I think you're convincing me that it isn't a retread, even though I knew it wasn't. It doesn't feel like a retread, but you know what I'm saying. I
understand.
But the one thing about this whole sequence, and I can't quite figure it out yet because I don't know enough about cinematography and color grading.
It looked pretty washed out to you.
But it has that, which is the same thing with like Wakanda. It's like that washed out green, not vibrant colors. And there's like a lack of depth. Like it's kind of, you don't really see how far things are away. And like the cameras, if I'm remembering right, I'm kind of just spitballing here, but I feel like they don't use like focus very effectively. Yeah. So it'll like just look at a landscape and you can just see everything. Or
you think it's too busy to know what to focus on?
Maybe.
Or it's like too daunting to figure that out?
I don't think so, because I just imagine if this was an independent movie, and you had like a director with vision beyond just adapting the books faithfully, maybe they would have done something more visually pleasing.
I would agree with that.
I think the set's kind of cool. Yeah. I like the whole clock idea.
Yeah.
And I actually like the things they come up against. I think those are cool.
Yes. I think that,
but there's just a washed out look to it.
I agree. A little bit of just a franchise thing I'm kind of used to looking at in a way.
Yeah, it's like, oh, is this a PG-13 movie? Okay, yeah, it's supposed to look like this. Because I remember seeing the trailers for Hobbs and Shaw, and they go to Samoa. I haven't seen the movie, but they go to Samoa, and I was like, oh, how come Samoa looks ugly?
Yeah.
Like it looks the same as all these other... Whenever a place is green, for some reason, blockbusters are like determined not to make them look good. It's weird.
Don't get it. Maybe we got to talk to someone about that sometime. I would say that this whole part could be shorter.
Yeah.
That's my opinion. I think it's all of it's important. Obviously, very interesting, especially during when it comes to her trusting people and not trusting people, learning to trust people again. That's all really important character-wise, but like I think a lot of it was just a little too drawn out.
Yeah.
Like it begins. Okay, now she has to get her stuff. Okay, now she has to run out to the forest. Make sure Peeta's still fine. Finding out that Finnick is going to be on her team because Haymitch like made a deal with him, whatever that deal was.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, that's a big stuff that has to happen, and then they go into the forest.
Oh, I guess because he's on the... So he just... Is the implication that he just bought Finnick for the Resistance?
No.
No?
No. I don't know. We don't know what the story is.
Okay.
And it was funny because you kept not understanding it in the movie.
But they never paid that off, right?
No.
Maybe they will later.
I'm assuming he's just fine. A good guy.
No. But I mean, like, he has that...
Okay, so here's what happened, Micah. So this whole time Katniss is like, hey, Mitch, if you can't be in the games, I am begging you to make sure Peeta's fine. Do whatever you can to make sure Peeta's okay.
Right, okay.
So then Haymitch is like, Haymitch can't fight, so he has to figure out a different way to ensure Peeta's safety. Okay, what am I going to do? I am going to persuade one of the people to become her undying ally to the death, to the point where he gets rid of the old lady for her. I know it's not that bad.
I got you.
The reason why he has the gold band is to visually represent, I'm with Haymitch, everything's fine.
Yeah.
That's it.
Okay.
Whether or not there's more layers to be peeled, we have not seen it.
The thing that popped into my head is I was wondering if, like, okay, pre Haymitch talking to him, is he a part of the bigger resistance, or is there an off-screen, which is okay, I'm not saying it's bad, but is there an off-screen, like, Haymitch goes to him and he goes, hey, this resistance is happening, we need your help in these games?
I would say it is not important whether whoever side they're on. It's important for Katniss to understand that she can trust him.
Yeah.
That's all
I'm
you
just
need
curious. I'm just curious.
Do you understand a single thing in this movie? Okay, so they go into the forest, and then Peeta gets shocked, and then it's like, okay, so he's shocked, he almost dies. Big deal. I get it, people. And then they get a water thingy from Haymitch, and then fog comes, and then there's monkeys. There's just so much stuff that happens. Yeah. And then they get back to the beach and become allies with more people and get this new... It's just so much stuff happens.
Monkeys, special effects, for the most part, hold up really well, I would say.
I thought it was cool.
There were a few shots where I was like... I was also laying down at that point, which changed my perspective a little bit. But there were a few shots where I didn't realize... I wasn't sure if they were using special effects or not. And then once it kept playing out, I was like, okay, they are, because I don't know why they would like get one monkey and not 20 monkeys.
They just did it really smart with both movies. I know the dogs didn't look super great in the first movie, but it was really dark, so they got away with a lot. And this movie was like dusk, so they got away with a lot. Very smart.
But can I hop in again?
Yeah.
I think one thing, and I bet we talked about this with Marvel, especially with like Phase 2, maybe Phase 1 stuff. But I think even though this movie does do action pretty competently, and it looks better than the previous movie, and I think the action is a little bit better, but I think there's something to like blockbuster just action where like I'm sitting there and I'm going, and again, I don't want to say that these sequences are bad. I think this is a good movie and I like this movie, but I just think that like I'm more interested in all the stuff that wasn't action, that was the first hour and a half of the movie. And then when we get to the action, it's a little like, okay, I know you have to make this, 1 hour, but you're not the guy who directed John Wick. So even though it's a pretty serviceable good hour, it's just not like, oh, but I wish you had hired someone else for this sequence to make it like really thrilling, so that when you watch the movie you would think, oh man, I forgot that the political stuff's really cool, not the other way around where you're like, oh yeah, the action's pretty cool.
That's why I think that if they did that, I probably wouldn't think that all of this should be shorter.
That's exactly what
because it's just kind of like, okay, they fight monkeys, get through it, even though it didn't look bad or anything. And
it's competent. It's not like over the top where I would personally like to see it go.
Yeah. And then we'll blow past, they get with the other people and they need to go to the tree that gets struck by lightning every night.
A cool looking tree.
Yeah. To basically...
There's some cool sets in the movie, for sure.
Yeah. So the idea is to bring the coil back to the water so that by the time the other people get to the water, they'll be electrocuted and killed.
Yeah.
Pretty good plan. That's when Katniss tries to beg Peeta to run away at this point, when he's like, we need to at least stick with him a little bit longer because this is a pretty good plan.
Mm-hmm.
So they get to the tree and all this stuff. Obviously, their plan's not going to work, her and Peeta. And it is, and I think it's not a bad thing, but at this point where I'm like, how is this going to end?
Sure.
It doesn't make sense, like having allies when everyone's going to have to die at some point. But I do understand that. It's not a bad strategy at all.
Yeah.
And it's one of those things where no one else, like everyone's thinking about that.
Yeah.
But not right now. But anyway, so her and the Donnie Darko girl start going back, and then they get attacked, and it looks like she attacks Katniss for a second, but then you see that she pulls the tracker out of her arm.
Yeah.
So it's like, huh? What's going on here?
Happening?
And kind of, I would say the whole time they've been making certain comments of like, we need to keep her safe. We need to keep her alive. Like all this stuff. And it's almost like, I mean, yeah, that makes sense because she's like the biggest propaganda piece right now.
Yeah. But why are you guys so concerned about it?
Exactly. So then things get really crazy. She runs back to the tree to try and find Peeta. Can't find him. That's what point when she's not sure she can trust Finnick again. She considers shooting him. But then that's when she gets the whole idea of like, because earlier in the movie they saw that there's like a dome. Like
and they do a good
dome setting up.
Chekhov's gun with the dome.
And
the portals just throughout the movie.
Yes.
Yeah.
Very smart strategy stuff. So that's when she coils around her bow or arrow and brings it all down. Creates a blackout.
And that was like cool. I was like, whoa, that is a wild ending to this.
And crazy too that Snow is watched. Like that's when Snow kind of re-enters this part of the movie and is watching this, and definitely being entertained by it because he trusts Philip Seymour Hoffman.
Yeah.
And then when that happens, he's trying to find him and he can't find him.
Yeah.
Because it shows the game room where Philip Seymour Hoffman had went 2 minutes before, but he's not there.
You're right. Yeah.
Which I still didn't know what was going on, so I was like, oh, that's weird. Maybe I don't know. I'm sure they'll tell us what happened.
And then
she gets airlifted out. And then she wakes up in a plane and she sees Finnick, Haymitch, and Philip Seymour Hoffman, very confused, hysterical. I don't blame her. I'd be hysterical too.
Yeah.
And then later on she wakes up again and Gale's there. And it's like weird because they don't look to be in a place that's District 12. It still looks sci-fi.
I think you even said you're like, oh, dream.
That's what it felt like.
Yeah.
And
which is kind of cool that they kind of pulled the wool over your eyes on that.
Yes. So then that's when we find out that District 12 no longer exists.
Oh, yeah.
Huh?
Yeah.
How much time is left on this movie?
I know. I actually, because it was recorded on YouTube TV, and I was like, oh no, this doesn't have the last like 20 minutes of this movie.
I know.
Is what I
and
thought.
It's like, I don't know how the series ends, but I'm like, how did they create 2 more movies out of this?
Yeah.
And I'm curious if I'm going to watch these next 2 movies and think that they should not have been parters.
Yeah.
But if it should have just been like a very intense, succinct 3 movies.
Yeah.
Like they were 3 books. And I believe all the 3 books were not even that long. Which I know there's a lot of subtext in all of it.
Folks, I will be letting you know I will answer those questions for you, Jordan, in the next episode.
Sure you will. So pretty much, and we find out that the Capitol has Peeta.
Yeah. Yeah, and then she does a nice like Revenant style shot where she looks into the camera and she gains the confidence and anger.
Yes. She turns from crying to Yeah,
and I mean the way it ends, I mean us talking about the ending right now makes me like, ooh, oh, we got to watch the next one like quick.
I really like this movie, man.
Yeah, I think it's really good.
So far the series is really good.
Yeah, I think we primed ourselves for such success on liking it, having just finished Twilight.
Yeah.
Because this is the next series that we've watched in our lives at this point.
Yeah.
And it's just been like, oh yeah, young adult doesn't suck. Like it can be cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's I think it's a really good movie. I liked it.
I did too, dude.
And I think we covered it pretty thoroughly.
Yeah.
For once, our talking about the movie plot was longer than the production and actors.
Right.
So, folks, here we are. We're at the end of our episode. We got 2 more Hunger Games to go. We got our Patreon series picked coming up real soon. It's either being voted on right now, or it's won, and it'll be happening as our next series. If you want to be a part of that, go to patreon.com/MicahMcCaw, sign up, and it's like a monthly subscription, basically. Tiers range from $3 to $10, and you can get bonus episodes. We did a What We Do in the Shadows episode that came out this month. And I have a music video for my song Overtime that's out now. And
very cool.
Yeah, it's real cool. It would mean a lot to me if you shared it with people. And make sure and leave a comment. I know we have more than 13 listeners, but we only have 13 ratings on iTunes, or Apple Podcasts. So please go on there, give us 5 stars, and if you want, just write something. It can be anything. It'd be fun. You don't have to like sit there and go through and pull out your thesaurus and write this beautiful review. You could be like, hey, I think Harry Potter is cool, and I liked that series. That would make us feel good.
Yep.
Or tell us if you disagree or whatever.
Yeah.
But let's pump that number up. Let's get it to like 20.
Yeah.
And we have 10 patrons now. Let's pump that up to 15. Let's go. Let's get this train out of the station. But she is leaving the station. Just maybe the better metaphor is it's time to jump on board. Am I right, folks?
Gosh.
But thanks for listening. Really, thanks for listening.
Yep.
This is cool. We've done it for a year now. And the audience has definitely grown. And people have really like it. It's cool. Thanks, guys.
Thanks.
Bye.